The courtroom was silent when the verdict was read. Every head turned toward the defendant's table as the judge's voice echoed through the room. Guilty. At the table, a young man sat perfectly still, his face pale, his hands clenched so tightly his knuckles had turned white. His name was Daniel Cole, or at least that was the name written on the court documents. From the back row, another young man watched, frozen in place. He looked exactly like Daniel. Same face, same height, same narrow scar above the left eyebrow, same dark, restless eyes. His name was David Cole, and justice had just picked the wrong twin. Daniel and David were identical twins, born 11 minutes apart in a small town where everyone knew their mother and pitied their father. Their parents had died in a car accident when the boys were 16, leaving them to survive on their own. From the outside, they looked inseparable. Inside, they were nothing alike. Daniel was quiet, cautious, and painfully honest. He worked as a mechanic, kept his head down, and believed that if you did the right thing long enough, life would eventually reward you. David believed something else entirely. David believed the world was unfair, and that clever people survive by bending the rules. He was charming, reckless, and always chasing something bigger. Easy money, easy admiration, easy escapes. For years, Daniel cleaned up David's messes. Missed rent, bar fights, broken promises. He told himself it was loyalty, family, blood. The night everything changed, Daniel had been working late at the garage. He remembered it clearly because he'd been looking forward to going home early for once. He wiped grease from his hands, clocked out, and drove straight to his small apartment. He ate noodles, watched an old movie, and fell asleep on the couch. At 11:42 p.m., a man was shot dead outside a downtown casino. Security cameras caught a hooded figure fleeing the scene. Witnesses described the shooter as tall, slim, with a distinctive scar above the left eyebrow. The police didn't need long to find a suspect. By morning, Daniel was in handcuffs. He didn't understand it at first. He laughed when they said his name. He thought it was a mistake, some mix-up that would be cleared in minutes. Then they showed him the footage. The grainy image froze on the screen. The hood slipped back just enough to reveal a face. His face. "I didn't do this," Daniel said quietly. The detectives exchanged looks that told him they'd heard those words 1,000 times before. When Daniel asked to call his brother, they allowed it. David answered on the second ring. "Dave," Daniel said, his voice shaking. "They say I killed someone." There was a pause, a long one. "What?" David said finally. "That's crazy. They have video." Another pause. Then David sighed. "Danny, don't worry. I'll come down there. We'll sort this out." But David never came. By the time the case went to trial, David had vanished from the town entirely. The trial moved fast. Too fast. The prosecution had everything they needed. Video footage, witness statements, the scar. Daniel's lawyer argued mistaken identity, mentioned the twin, but without David present. It sounded like desperation. The guilty verdict came down in less than 3 hours. As Daniel was led away in handcuffs, his eyes searched the courtroom one last time. David wasn't there. Prison changed Daniel in ways he couldn't explain. At first, he tried to tell his story. He told guards, other inmates, anyone who would listen. Most laughed, some shrugged, a few warned him to keep quiet. After his 3rd year inside, Daniel stopped talking about innocence altogether. He learned the rules of survival, when to speak, when to stay invisible, when to fight back. At night, lying on his thin mattress, one thought haunted him more than the bars or the concrete walls. David was free. Somewhere out there, his brother was living Daniel's life, breathing fresh air, walking streets Daniel might never see again. The idea burned slowly, steadily, until it hardened into something cold and sharp. David had changed his name. He moved 3 cities away, found work under the table, and told people his brother had died. At first, he avoided mirrors. Daniel's face stared back at him, accusing and familiar. Over time, that feeling faded. He told himself he had no choice, that if he'd gone to the police, they would have arrested him instantly. That prison would have destroyed him. Daniel was stronger. He reasoned. Daniel would survive. But every night, when the world went quiet, guilt found him. It crept into his dreams, into his thoughts, into the way he flinched whenever he heard sirens. 5 years after the trial, David saw Daniel's name on the news. Inmate Daniel Cole denied appeal. David turned off the TV and sat in the dark for a long time. For the first time, he wondered if he'd gone too far. The turning point came 10 years into Daniel's sentence. A new public defender named Maya Lawson took an interest in his case. She was young, stubborn, and uncomfortable with easy answers. She read the file, watched the footage, and frowned. "This doesn't sit right," she said. She dug deeper. Then she found something else. A traffic ticket issued 3 months after the murder. The photo showed a man pulled over for speeding. His name was David Cole. Maya stared at the image. Same face, same scar. But the date was impossible. According to the state, David didn't exist. Maya tracked David down slowly, carefully. It took almost a year. When she finally stood at his door, David knew instantly why she was there. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this," he said before she even spoke. Maya didn't raise her voice. She didn't threaten him. She just said, "Your brother has spent 10 years in prison for your crime." David's shoulders sagged. "I was scared," he whispered. "I thought I could disappear. Thought it would fix everything." "It didn't," Maya replied. David confessed that night. He told the whole story. The argument outside the casino. The gun. The panic. The hoodie. The moment he realized the resemblance would save him. When the confession went public, the town exploded. Daniel was called back to court in chains. This time, the room felt different. David sat at the defendant's table, older, thinner, his confidence stripped away. For the first time in over a decade, the twins were in the same room again. Their eyes met. Daniel felt something crack inside his chest. The judge listened to the confession, the new evidence, the failures of the investigation. Then the words Daniel had waited 10 years to hear were spoken. Conviction vacated. Daniel didn't move at first. He wasn't sure he could. When the cuffs were removed, his hands trembled. David was led away in custody. As they passed each other, David stopped. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I know it doesn't fix anything." Daniel looked at him for a long moment. "No," Daniel said quietly. "It doesn't." Then he walked past him without looking back. Freedom didn't feel the way Daniel imagined. People expected him to celebrate, to smile, to be grateful. Inside, he felt hollow. But slowly, day by day, he began to rebuild. He worked again. He laughed again. He slept through the night. One afternoon, Daniel stood in front of a mirror and studied his reflection. Same face, same scar. But this time, it belonged to him again. Justice had picked the wrong twin. But in the end, the truth refused to stay buried. Subscribe to watch more.